Yeah, hey now, good morning, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us for Thursday's class. What a week we've had, right? Breakfast at Tiffany's on Monday. We're going to see your film scoring results tomorrow. Can't wait to show you that. Then Benjamin Britten, the English composer, and then Cannonball Adderley, the great alto saxophonist that we looked at yesterday. Today's going to be a little scandalous. It's going to be fun, though, because we're going to do our LA history class, but we're going to go, what's below LA? I mean, underground. Obviously, underground is below LA, but there's some little tunnels. We're going to be talking about tunnels in Los Angeles. We're going to be talking about prohibition in LA. We're going to be talking about subways. We're going to be talking about mobsters too. It's going to be really fun though, because we're going to look into some LA's dark past history. This should be appropriate for the kids. Hopefully we won't get scared away here. We're making it a fun class. We're going to get right into LA's secret underground. So let's take a look at what we got. So we're in Florida for Cannonball. Let's go over to LA and the Hollywood sign, and the town that you love, John loves, Lloyd loves, Megan loves, Bon loves, my parents love. I always forget them too. They love it too. But we're gonna see it apart. Well, hopefully they'll still love it after this, or you guys will still love it after this, because this is some good history. So I mean, LA. Okay, we'll need some recap. Founded 1781 is the date of Los Angeles. A lot of stuff happens there, but we're really going to be looking at downtown kind of in the 1920s. So we'll be looking at that. So there was a subway system. It opened in 1925 in LA. The first subway was about, and it helped shave about 15 minutes of travel time between downtown and other places, to Glendale, to Hollywood. And people would get on the red cars, one of the 6 platforms below the subway terminal on Hill Street. So Hill Street's a big center part. And the trolleys headed to underground, to these tunnels. And at its height, the Pacific Electric System, we looked at Union Station. It was the largest urban rail system in the United States. The mile-long tunnel was crucial in bringing passengers back and forth into downtown, which was clogged up by the automobile, by cars. But the subway hit its peak around 1944. Okay, but they were carrying about 65,000 people on a daily basis. But it was short-lived, because by the 50s it was affordable for almost every family and everybody to have a car. So instead of continuing that, I don't know why, we just kind of left it. So those are some of the tunnels, the subway system that we had. What about the other tunnels? And there's a lot of other tunnels. There's 11 miles of service tunnels below Los Angeles. And so, and those tunnels became passageways, basements, speakeasies, with kind of just generic storefronts. And that's why we're going to get into Kohl's. That's one of the famous restaurants. We're going to get into there. But about 100 years ago, these urban streets were very congested. So tunnels allowed people to solve these, transportation issues and all that stuff. Some tunnels were for streetcars, and subways, of course. Some were for moving cash, for banks to move large sums of cash. So it was a safer way in some ways, in some instances, to do that. So around 1901, workers started digging tunnels under Bunker and Hill Street. Many of these under Alvera Street and Chinatown, and some of these dating back to the 19th century. In fact, some tunnels in the 19th century were in Chinatown, and they would connect brothels, gambling parlors, opium dens. Not that I condone any of this stuff, but this is part of history. This is what happens beneath the street of the North Central Plaza, so kind of near Alvera Street in Chinatown. And even tunnels in the Hollywood Hills. Supposedly several mansions with wealthy celebrities had tunnels connecting to other houses so they could hide their booze. So we're going to be talking about prohibition, in Los Angeles, because obviously traffic and all that stuff is, good for tunnels, but also for booze, for liquor, because why? Prohibition, right? Remember Prohibition? It started from 1920 to 1933, the Volstead Act, which seemed like a good idea probably. And I won't give too much of my spin on this, but it's, it's my class again, and there's nobody in this room, so luckily I have the, no one's going to argue with me, at least right now. So in good faith that this system would work, prohibition, but with that we get organized crime. So that's when the mobsters come in. Okay, so prohibition nationwide, not just in California, obviously the whole country. Constitution ban on the production, importation, transportation, sale of all alcoholic, beverages. So 13 years. Pretty big experiment. Was it the first? No, it was actually tried a few times. It was tried in Maine, prohibition, in 1851, and also in Kansas City in 1881, but it failed. So they did try it a few times. Why did they do it? They thought that it would reduce crime and corruption, which of course it didn't do that at all. In fact, it made it worse. They thought it would solve some social problems, public drunkenness. Drunkenness was out of control on the streets, and this is throughout the country. And they wanted to reduce the tax burden created by prisons and poorhouses and improve America's health. And actually, some of that did work. They said that drinking decreased during Prohibition, 30% lower than pre-Prohibition levels for several years. So some of those things worked. But in 1920, it wasn't illegal to drink during Prohibition. It was illegal to manufacture, to sell, and to transport these things. So if you were caught with a drink in your hand, that wasn't illegal. A little confusing though. Another thing that happened is that thousands died from drinking contaminated liquor, because without regulations, you don't know what you're drinking. In fact, many people died and became blind forever because they would drink bathtub gin. Again, just like the drug trade today, you don't know what you're buying because it's black market, it's illegal. So a lot of people bought the wrong stuff, which is really sad. What stopped was in 1933, because we know the crash happens in 1929. The Great Depression actually helped repeal this act. It repealed it because they're like, hey, we need more money. The country's bankrupt, so okay, maybe we'll do this. Again, it always goes back to money usually. They care about people's well-being, but for the most part, money makes the world go round. No, that's such a cheesy line. You know what I'm trying to say though. So during Prohibition, tunnels in Los Angeles were very alive and active thanks to Prohibition. So when alcohol was illegal, bars literally went underground. The service tunnels became passageways and basements of illicit bars, breaking the law, of course. Speakeasies became drinking spots of choice, allowing folks to enjoy themselves having a drink underground while sober Angelenos on the streets were walking above them. So, and most of this alcohol was, supplied by who? Organized crime, by gangsters. So the tunnels that are currently under the Hall of Records and administration downtown, were used to, kept and also captured bootleggers and gangsters away from the camera. So it's also a great way to not be seen. Slight little rumor that some of these tunnels were used by coroners and mobsters to store bodies under there. So people, if they need a drink, where do they go? They go to speakeasies, and there's still some speakeasies there. Of course, now it's legal because booze is legal. So King Eddie's Saloon is one of them, and Cole's French Dip, which is still there. They were huge, though, back in the days for speakeasies, and they required a secret code in order to enter. A word was whispered through the small slit in a wooden door in a shady back alley, and that would allow you to come in. Now, it wasn't just mobsters that were corrupt. Of course, a lot of LA City officials were corrupt and complicit. They knew the bootleg trade was happening. Things escalated in 1925 in LA with the mayoral election. It put Cryer against a candidate favored by Harry Chandler, who created the Hollywood sign. We talked about him, publisher of the Times. And Cryer won the election, but it triggered a lot of things from the LA Times on the inner workings of City Hall and the corruption. William Parker was the chief, one of the most famous chiefs of the LA, LA department. He's kind of Lieutenant Exley in LA Confidential. That's kind of Bill Parker's. We're going to talk a little bit about movies too. Who was based on what people were based on in pop culture. So if it's repealed in 1933, now what are the gangsters going to do? Well, now what's organized crime going to do? They're going to go where? To Las Vegas. That's where they're going to go with Mo Green. Now, Mo Green is really the fictional character, obviously, but they're going to go where Vegas is. Who were the mobsters here? Okay, so we know most of the organized crime is all on the East Coast and in Chicago, because that's where the beginning of the country of the United States, the colonies and all that stuff. That's like we've talked about in the West, mostly it was Indians and just open land. But back, New York was very, as an uprising city in the 19th century, and gangs were there in New York. And so all the five families and the mafia and all that stuff, from Sicily and Corleone, they came to New York, and that's where they established. But that doesn't mean there weren't mobsters in LA, but they were mostly mobsters taking orders from people back east. Okay, so Cole's French Dip opens in 1908. It's still there, and it's the oldest operating place in Los Angeles that's still there in that same location. So 1908, founded by Henry Cole on the ground floor of the Pacific Electric building. So you can get through a tunnel below Cole's. Cole's was a very famous hangout spot for mobsters, including one of the most famous LA mobsters, Mickey Cohen. If Mickey Cohen would hang out at Cole's all the time, and if you were a regular customer, your coffee would come with a little something extra, especially on those cold days, you need something. During Prohibition, the Biltmore Hotel, which is near Pershing Square, which we did a class on Pershing Square, the famous Gold Room was served as a speakeasy and nightclub. They had a hidden door to help, people, to help avoid the police and the paparazzi, and you could escape onto Olive Street. The door is still there. There's a connecting room that has a kind of a wooden counter. So you can still see a little bit of it, but the Biltmore was definitely used, and you can go underground there. After Prohibition ended, the LA service tunnels kind of were just, they dropped. There wasn't really much use for them. What they would do, though, they would transport prisoners, from City Hall to courthouse jails for the Hall of Justice. So, okay, Mickey Cohen, but who's the godfather in LA? It's Jack Dragna. Dragna was a huge bootlegger in California during Prohibition. In 1931, he was the boss of the Los Angeles crime family. They called him the Capone of Los Angeles. And Capone, Al Capone, Scarface, he was all based in Chicago, although he came out to LA a lot and stayed at the Biltmore, stayed at a lot of other places to oversee it. But he was kind of Dragna's boss. I mean, we're simplifying facts just because there's so many names, but he was kind of Dragna. But although Dragna was boss out here, so all of his money, Dragna's money, came, bookmakers and protection and extortion and all these, illegal gambling, because that's not illegal. It's still illegal here in LA. He also would do gambling ships and heroin smuggling operation, and one of the persons that he worked a lot with and was Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. You probably heard the movie Bugsy. Benjamin Siegel, he was a celebrity. He kind of wanted to be an actor at one point, and he was a mobster celebrity. You would never call him Bugsy to his face, or he would kill you, because that was just a nickname given to him that he didn't like. But he had a lot to do with popular culture as a mobster, as a lead. He had the looks to be a movie star too, and he was very friendly with George Raft and a lot of the Hollywood people. he was assassinated. Actually, he was killed in Beverly Hills on the night in 1947. He was in his girlfriend's, Virginia Hills, Beverly Hills home, reading the Times, and an unknown assailant, probably Jack Dragna's crew, killed him with a .30 caliber, hitting him many times while he was reading the paper. No one was charged, but I mean, we pretty much think it was Dragna. So that's on Linden Drive. We're going to take a look at the map in a second. And kind of under Bugsy was Mickey Cohen. So Dragna's the boss, Bugsy, and then Mickey Cohen's there. Born in New York, but grew up all in Boyle Heights, and was so kind of an Angelino, really. He was Siegel's bodyguard for a little bit, but he would also take over Siegel's rackets. But then Dragna wanted him killed, and he survived so many. He had a bulletproof car. His haberdashery on Sunset was bombed. I mean, there was so many close calls. It's amazing that he wasn't actually killed. He was a hothead too. So these three mobsters lived all in L.A. Now, what's kind of creepy is Jack Dragna lived in Leimert Park, very close to the studio, actually. This is where Bugsy, Mickey Cohen, and Jack Dragna, these were their houses. We did a class on Godfather, and we talked a little bit about, how Mario Puzo and Coppola used some real-life characters. Now we looked at the horse scene in Godfather, the horrific scene, and Jack Waltz, right, the movie producer. Who was he based on? He was based on Harry Cohen, who was the head of Columbia Pictures. If you remember, Cohen didn't want Sinatra to play the part, and Sinatra, of course, was Johnny Fontaine. And so these are real, real people. Bugsy Siegel went out to start, before he was killed, went out to start Las Vegas, and that was Mo Green. Mo Green was based on Bugsy Siegel, and Bugsy Siegel was very close with Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky was the brilliant operations person that had all the numbers of the gambling rackets in his head, and that, of course, is Hyman Roth, Lee Strasberg. So some very cool. They have tunnel tours. Very cool history. I mean, it's kind of not allowed to go there. You're not allowed to go there, but I know that they give tours, and it would be really fun to kind of do one of these. I'm kind of scared of rats, and I would think rats would be under there, but I'll go if you hold my hand. But it's kind of cool. I thought we would just look at some of the underground, the dark part of LA history and corruption, because as beautiful as our city is, with anything, there's always kind of, darkness. That's just part of, human history and stuff. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope it wasn't too scary. You can get the kids back now. And tomorrow we'll see your film school results for Breakfast at Tiffany's. So I hope you enjoyed this, and this was a lot of fun for me, and I will see you tomorrow. Okay, love you, miss you. Said it all. That's it. Okay, bye.